I'll wait a few seconds here until we go live over to YouTube. I think we've just gone live over to YouTube right now. Hi, everybody. So nice to see you all today, or at least see your names over on YouTube Live. Welcome to the Posit Enterprise Community Meetup. I'm Rachel. I lead our customer community here at Posit. This is a friendly and open meetup environment for teams to share use cases, teach lessons learned, and just meet each other and ask questions. If you've joined us here at the meetup before, put a 2 into the YouTube chat. If this is your first time, put a 1 into the chat. I stole that from Matt Dancho. But for those of us who have been here before, I encourage you to also help welcome everybody in. Together, we're all dedicated to making this space inclusive and open for everyone, no matter your experience, industry, or background. During the event, we will certainly have time for Q&A, and you're able to ask questions live on YouTube Live through the chat, and I can see them and save them and star them here, but also anonymously through Slido, which I will share on the screen in just a second here. Our presenters today also have a few questions for you too. So there will be a poll through Slido as well. So I'll put that onto the screen there. To address one of the popular questions up front, yes, the recording will be available and it will actually be ready right as the presentation ends. So at the same exact YouTube Live link. But anyways, I am so excited to have you all here with us today. At Posit, we get to see firsthand the shift to open source across the pharmaceutical industry, and are excited to be able to share some of those stories with you all through meetups and all kinds of stories. I'm joined by my colleague, Jason Milnes, who's helping out in the background as well. Jason works with many of our life science customers today. Thank you, Jason, for joining and helping out. We are so excited to have both Gabriella Rustici and Guillaume Desachy here with us today to share their experience and learn more about the R journey that AstraZeneca is currently on. Gabriella is Data Science Learning Senior Director in AstraZeneca's R&D Data Science and AI, where she is responsible for developing a strategy for and creating a centralized approach to data science learning for R&D. Guillaume is a statistical science director at AstraZeneca, passionate about helping bring new medicines to patients by leveraging the power of statistics and precision medicine. He has also been leading a team of 15 collaborators focused on building the community of R users at AstraZeneca called R at AZ. Thank you both so much for joining us today, and I'd love to pull you up on stage with me here. Can you hear us okay?
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, hi, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to head backstage, but I'll be collecting all the questions and resources and sharing in the chat too. And I will turn it over to you both.
Fantastic. So thank you very much, Rachel, for having us today. It's a great pleasure for us to be here, and it's a great pleasure for me to be sharing this experience with Gabriella. So before we get started, we actually have a couple of questions, and Rachel will be sharing a Slido link with all of you because we want to get to know you, even if we're not in the same room. We want to get to know who you are. We want to get to know where you are connecting from. So yeah, please answer the questions in Slido, and we'll leave it about 30 seconds to 1 minute.
And I put the link in the YouTube chat, but it's also on the screen here, the short link for the Slido.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Rachel. And I guess people can answer directly in the Slido, right? Cool. Maybe we can get started. So my name is Guillaume, and I want you to picture a scene. you are learning a new programming language. And I won't tell you how long ago I first started learning how to program in SAS, because both Gabriella and I decided, okay, let's not disclose it. It might be embarrassing. But you first learn to use this programming language. And for me, it was actually SAS. And back then, R kind of felt like a faraway land, kind of like this person in this picture. It was like a magnificent landscape. We knew we were having fun with SAS. R was all the way back there. And I'm mentioning it because I think there's been a true paradigm shift in the pharmaceutical industry. And back when I learned how to use SAS, I think there was a strong divide between SAS and R. And you basically had to choose your camp. Either you were a SAS user or you were an R user. But I think things have really changed in the industry. And now things are really different, because you can read an actual SAS dataset from R, and there is real interconnection between the two languages. So that's one thing. But the other thing that I find very interesting is that our workforce, the new people that we hire, they're actually multilingual. They speak different programming languages, and most of them, they speak R and SAS or R and another one. And that's what is really fun. But talking a bit more about our workforce and the profiles of our users, I think we can think of these usual suspects, because we can think of the statisticians, we can think of the programmers, we can think of the data scientists. But what is very interesting is that the R users at AstraZeneca is actually much more than the usual suspects, because we've got clinicians using R, we've got medical directors using R, we've got information practice scientists using R. So we've got a lot of people using R, and it is this diversity which makes it very fun. So before I hand over to Gabri, there is one Slido question that we would want you to answer. And this question is about how you first learned how to use R. And again, let's wait a bit. I can see
I can try and pull your screen on to show it. Let's see.
Cool. And I know that there's quite a few of you back there. So let's wait to have at least 30 people answering this. Okay, so while there, so Gabri, you've got the answer to your question. You wanted to know how people had first learned how to use R. Well, it seems like a lot of people are self-taught R users, that they actually never followed any kind of formal training. Gabri,
And I think,
yeah,
yes, indeed. Thank you, Guillaume. And I don't think this is different, from what I had expected. Actually, I know lots of programmers self-teach themselves how to program. Not everybody is fortunate in their workplace or throughout their career to have a wonderful, dedicated learning and development team, as we are fortunate in the SNAI here at AstraZeneca. So I just wanted to put up faces and names because this is the team that makes our training program possible, develops it, runs it, and also our community initiative as well. So maybe you'll find some of these people on LinkedIn and you'll connect with them. Let's just say that although, the success of our program is also linked to the fact that we have a very large group of trainers. I've seen Abhijit connected, he is one of them. So again, a training program wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for the time and commitment that the instructors give us. So let's move to the next slide. What do I run? So the learning and development team that I represent aligns their activities and initiatives to the 3E framework. So we all know that the best way of learning is through experiencing something, to being exposed to others and the way that others work and connect. And the smallest component should be education, but often education might help us get us started, to gain a little bit of confidence to then go out there and experience and expose themselves the way others are working. So let's just start taking a look at the education program that we run. And if we move to the next slide, the project that I lead within AstraZeneca is called Data Science Academy. So Data Science Academy is an R&D wide educational resource in everything that pertains data science and AI. You can already imagine that are featured prominently in these. So what we try to do is to cater to all of the needs of the people that Guillaume had on his last slide. So we recognize that there are many different individuals in different roles with different needs, some that requires, a little bit of data science awareness, some that require deep technical skills to carry out their role. But let's also keep in mind that this is not just about technical training. This is also about how do we bridge the gap between scientists and data scientists? How do we improve the way that we communicate? And we try to tailor everything to the needs of our therapy areas and functions. So again, you relate to training better if we are using examples that are close to your heart. So this is a nutshell, is what Data Science Academy is. And if we move to the next slide, as I said before, we recognize the fact that there are many aspects of data science, some that are more relevant to scientists, some that are more relevant to data scientists. This is sort of how we think and organize our activity. We have awareness raising level training where there is no coding. It's just more about understanding how is data science used, ethical aspect of working responsibly with data and artificial intelligence, and maybe for the bravest, start dipping their toes into coding. If you look at the right-hand side of the slide, instead, this is, the component of the training that is more technical. So learning how to use R, how to use Python, then start applying this programming language in the context of statistics, in the context of machine learning. How do we move then to the next level and adopt coding best practices so that we can collaborate and share coding effectively? And then, for example, how we use R in the analysis of transcriptomics data, analysis of proteomics data, so looking at the analysis of particular data types. So, and in the middle, that very important, crucial connector, that is how do we translate between these two expertises. So what makes us better communicator, better collaborator? What basic knowledge do we need in order to carry out our job most effectively? Moving to the next slide, we also recognize the fact that we all learn differently. Some people are more keen to self-study, and for that reason, we have several educational resources that are available to our e-learning platform. They are curated by subject matter experts within the organization, and we sort of bring to them a digested set of learning pathways to get them started in many of the topics that we discussed above. Our best selling point is indeed our portfolio of virtual instructor-led courses. So this is our traditional classroom experience, although we do a lot of our activities virtually still until we go back to the face-to-face. These are your multi-days courses, mixture of lectures and practicals, and where you have obviously the possibility of interacting with the trainer, interacting with a mentor, and further your knowledge by starting to experience, by doing exercises. And this is where also our existing collaboration with POSIT Academy lies, because we have done and delivered some training in collaboration with them around basic art training. And then we bleed even more into the experiential learning, although I won't talk too much about this today, with our apprenticeship program, some of our project-based work and some of our mentoring. Again, thinking about how do we learn on the job, how do we learn by concentrating on specific projects that are offered to our learner, and how do we learn by talking to mentors, somebody, once you have done with a course, how do you start implementing some of the things that you have learn, perhaps you need a little bit more steer. That's where our mentoring program, which is very much run in collaboration with community already, that Guillaume will talk to us about later. And I think I have possibly one more slide, which is the next one. Just by looking and reiterating the fact that art training is a major component of our virtual instructor-led courses, I launched Data Science Academy shortly after joining AstraZeneca in 2020. So we have been running our program since then. And actually, the art training is probably the first training that we offer. 41% of our courses focus on R. As I said before, we range from basic programs, statistical analysis, machine learning, analytics. And we have until now, maybe these figures are already a little bit older. Maybe Ovigit might have sneaked a course in there since I put these slides together last. But we offer in the excess of 900 places on our virtual instructor-led courses, lots of training for SAS programmers, learning to use R. We have done a specific training program for them. And we also have a few learners on our online learning platform, but the virtual instructor-led courses are preferred. And as you see, there is a little bit of glimpse of what our learners say after 6 months from attending a course. Attenders have definitely improved their coding skills, have definitely improved their ability to handle data. So we can definitely see tangible effects of learners attending courses, but then also start implementing what they learn on their day-to-day job. And, you know, once individuals, we have obviously geographically distributed learners, graduate from some of our courses, often what they do next is also join our communities, as I said, to continue learning from their peers. And this is where I'll pass the ball back to Guillaume, which will tell us a bit more about our fabulous R community.
Thank you very much, Gabri. Thank you for this nice introduction about the great work that you've been doing. And I think you said something very nice regarding the diversity in the way we learn. And I think it's very true. And if we think a bit about it, some of us are going to be liking learning by watching a video. Some of us is going to be by opening a book. Some of us is going to be by being in the classroom, even though these days it's a bit harder to be in a physical classroom. And the way I kind of like to think about these things is with two indices. So the first one, I'm calling it the self-led learning index. And at the top of it, it means that you are going to be learning by yourself. It's a bit like if you were going to be opening a book. And at the bottom of it, people are going to be taking you by the hand. Someone is going to be helping you out. So this is the first index, the self-led learning index. And then there's the synchronicity index. On the right-hand side, if you miss the event, it's too bad. You won't be able to catch up. But on the left-hand side, you are going to be able to catch up because this kind of event or this kind of training is asynchronous. And now going back to what Gabri was actually talking about, we can fit the various kind of trainings and various kind of resources in these 4 quadrants. And if we think about the self-study resources, they are very much asynchronous and they are very much self-led by their name. Then if we think about the virtual instructor-led courses, someone is taking you by the hand. You're not in the classroom per se, not physically, but still someone is helping you out. And last but not least, we've got the experiential learning opportunities. So these 3 kind of trainings that Gabri was referring to, we can place them on the quadrant, and we can already see that we're tapping onto this diversity of learning, and that not every single learning is going to be carried out the same way. And I think that is the strength of what Gabri's team, Gabri's learning and development team is doing. So before we move on to the community, I would want to ask you one question. Is there an R community in your organization? And I saw that about more than 50 of you answered the question, the previous question. So let's aim for at least 50 this time again. Okay, pretty cool. Thank you for your answers. It's pretty cool to see that there is an R community in quite a proportion of the ones attending, and that's also pretty cool to see that for some of you, like 20+%, there's something in the works, or you would like to start one, which is also really exciting. So yeah, thank you for your answer. So let's move on with the community of our users at AstraZeneca. So the way we called it RDAZ, and as with all things related to R, we decided, okay, if we are going to be doing an R community, we are going to have some X stickers, and this is the logo of RDAZ. Now, when we started it, I'm talking about the early days, but the early days were not that long ago. It was a bit more than a year and a half ago. So a bit more than a year and a half ago, a few of us got together and we brainstormed, and we were like, okay, what could we do to get a community of our users started at AstraZeneca? And we jotted down some ideas. And one of them was, what about a Tidy Tuesday? Another one of them was, what about a weekly blog post? And another one of them was, what about an internal R conference? Now, we knew that it was going to be taking time, and that every single idea jotted down on a piece of paper was going to be taking a whole lot of time. But we were still like, okay, let's explore these ideas. And the first one we started was something that we branded as azTidyTuesday. So if you've heard of Tidy Tuesday, azTidyTuesday is stealing with pride Tidy Tuesday. But we made it our very own. And when I say we made it our very own, basically what we did is that each time we were promoting a data set, a publicly available data set, we were framing it, we were telling a story around something going on internally within AstraZeneca, or around one of our values, or framing it around something going on externally. And this was happening once a month. And the way we were doing this, we were promoting the data set, we were promoting the story on our internal social media, which is something which is supported by Facebook. So it's a bit like a Facebook equivalent. Our internal social media, you can see it as a Facebook equivalent. So we were promoting this data set. Collaborators had about 2 weeks to submit their entry. And a few days after the deadline, we were actually promoting one of the entries, and there was a featured contributor. And what you can see in here is the featured contributor of the very last azTidyTuesday. Because after 25 editions, we decided to retire azTidyTuesday. So this is something of the past. Now, let me go back to this. Let me go back to the diversity of learning. azTidyTuesday fits on the top left, because you can go back in time. All the codes, all the images, all the graphs are actually stored on a SharePoint online. So if you want to go back in time, you can go back to edition number 1, and you can go back to the code of that given person for edition number 1. And it's a mix of self-led learning index and also people walking you by the hand, because we were doing some code review for every single entry for the first few editions of Tidy Tuesday. So that's why it's Tidy Tuesday. But as I was saying, very early on, we're like, okay, maybe we could organize an internal R conference. We knew it was going to be a big piece, but we also knew that it was going to be good for the community. And if we think about it, a conference is pretty much a synchronous kind of thing, because if you miss it, you're going to be losing a lot of the interactivity. And then it's a mix between self-led and people taking you by the hand. But in a nutshell, it was a half-day event. We had 10+ hours of content related to R, 30 speakers, close to 30 posters, and all of these from close to 100 authors. And we were very fortunate to have Max Kuhn, so now from Posit, formerly known as RStudio. So that was pretty cool. And it was the first time we were doing this. So we didn't know how it was going to be received. We didn't know if people were going to be showing up. We were blown away, and actually the feedback was stellar. And we had more than 500 participants in this internal conference. So seeing these, we're like, okay, we can't just stop here. We have to keep going. We have to keep promoting new initiatives. We have to keep inventing new initiatives. And that's what we did in 2022. And one of these initiatives is the R function of the month. So the concept is that we detail one R function, and by we, I actually mean Daniel Schiff, because this is led by Daniel, and he does this in the form of a blog post. It happens once a month, and again, we leverage our internal social media. So on our internal social media, we do a workplace post, a Facebook post, and that's actually how it looks like. So it's an R Markdown, it's a .html, and people can go back to it. There's a nice description. And for example, in this one, it was about pivot longer and pivot wider. And there's chunks of code so that people can basically consult this and learn about this function, about this given package at their own leisure. So that's the R function of the month. And if we go back to this, then this is pretty much self-led, because you're going to have to make the effort to go through this HTML, but you can pretty much go back in time, because it's very easy to consult this and to have a look at this. Now, another initiative that we kicked off this year, and this is led by Gustav Söderström, is something that we're calling the Lunch and Learns. And the whole idea of the Lunch and Learns is that we know that time is scarce. So we decided, okay, let's tackle one topic at a time, and let's have 30-minute sessions. So about a 20-minute presentation, 5-10 minutes Q&A. And same thing, happening once a month, and having inclusion in mind while alternating between the US and Europe. And we've got, so for these kind of events, we had a mix of internal speakers and external speakers. And for example, in here, we had a presentation from Monica Hoon, who is one of our collaborators, and she talked about Plotly. But some other people called about R Markdown, or some other people talked about many other topics, about packages that they had developed. So that's the Lunch and Learns. And again, the Lunch and Learns are very much synchronous events, because if you miss these, it's going to be hard. You're going to be able to catch up, but you will again lose the interactivity. Now, let me move on to something that we branded as the 10-to-1s. So the 10-to-1s are led by Tom Marlowe. And the idea with this was, okay, we need to federate this community, and we want people to get to know each other. So let's ask to our users 10 questions. And each month is going to be the exact same 10 questions. And again, it's once a month. And in here, you can see the layout of the 10-to-1s. So this was from a few months ago. And what I really like with this initiative is that you can flip through the different 10-to-1s like you would flip through a magazine, and you can see the diversity. And that's where you see that everyone learns differently. Everyone has different kinds of tips on how to learn R. And if we look at this, the 10-to-1s, you can pretty much go back in time, because you can be, okay, I'm going to be catching up on the 10 past editions. I'm going to be flipping through the magazine of the 10-to-1s. And it's, I would say, people are going to be taking you by the hand, because the tips are very precise. So it's a gem, because you can very easily apply these to your day-to-day work. And initially, I was saying that we were leveraging our internal social media, and that we were doing all our communications via our internal social media. And this was true until very recently. And again, it's a question of inclusion and diversity, because we know that not everyone is checking our internal social media. So we decided, okay, let's launch a monthly newsletter. And Shu Yudeng is the one leading this. And the idea is a newsletter. So you've got our news, internal and external. It's one single email. We're not spamming you. And it's happening once a month by the middle of the month. And this is how it looks. And basically show you is collating everything that has happened in the past month. Every single R at AZ initiative that has happened in the past month. And also what has been going on internally, externally. Is there, let's say, R in pharma? Is there a meetup coming up? These kind of things. So now let's go back to this. The newsletter pretty much fits in here, but that's not it, because we've got other kinds of initiatives. And one of them, we are calling it Let's Meet Each Other. And again, it goes back to getting to know each other, because I think at the end of the day, that's all that matters. We want, as human beings, we crave these connections. We want to know each other. We want to build connections with other people. And then these connections are going to be helping building connections across departments. So that's what is Let's Meet Each Other. It's a very informal get together. It's a 30-minute session. You connect, you don't connect, doesn't matter. And you get to meet other R users in the organization. Sometimes we talk about R, sometimes we talk about other things. One thing we discussed, for example, was what do you think about POSIT, about the new name? What do you think about POSIT? Another time we talked about the holidays. Another time we talked about our favorite R package. So plenty of things. And then recently, we also did some workshops jointly with POSIT. And we've done 2 so far, and we are very much looking forward to be doing more with POSIT because they were very well received in the organization. And last but not least, the latest initiative that we launched is something that we called the AZR Hot Desk. And the whole idea in here is you come with your question. It's a face-to-face kind of event. You come with your question, and we're going to be helping you to answer this R-related question. So that's what we're doing in the community of R users at AstraZeneca. Now, of course, all of these initiatives, and in total, we've got, in 2022, we had 8 initiatives going on at the same time. Now we've got 7 because AzTidyTuesday, azTidyTuesday retired. But I won't lie, it does take quite a substantial amount of time. But behind the scenes, I'm the one doing the talking today, but behind the scenes, there's a great team working fabulously. And they did an amazing job throughout the year. And I don't think we would be here today without their dedication, without their passion, and without their commitment. So I want to thank them. If you want to know more about the community, we've written a blog post, which is available on the POSIT blog. So you can type this on your favorite browser and you'll be able to find this. Otherwise, you can flash the QR code and it will also land right there. So before we wrap up, we've got another question for you. What is more valuable for you at this moment in time? And again, let's aim for 50. Okay, so it's, I would say, you know, like everyone wants to have the best of both worlds. So they want to have what Gabri presented and potentially a bit of community as well. So I think, Gabri, I've got a question for you. So we talked about what we did in 2022, both in terms of trainings, and you talked about the importance of the diversity of learnings with education, experience, and exposure. But what is on your wish list for 2023?
Well, I think one of the important things is we can train lots of people on how to use R, but then we need to make sure that people use the skill that they have acquired, use it or lose it. So how do we make sure that there are opportunities for them to do so? How do we make sure that there are projects lined up once the skill has been acquired? How do we make sure actually that lots of the training that we develop is developed in response to the need of a particular group, a particular function, a particular set of individuals? So the requests come to us, like it has been for the development of our training for the SAS programmers. We evaluate what the training needs is, and we develop an intervention that I'm not going to say guarantees, but where we have some metrics of success from the beginning of how are we going to embed the skill, what is it that we are aiming to achieve through this training. And then we're obviously looking at the opportunity of strengthening our collaboration with POSIT. So we're actually been discussing to second someone from POSIT to AstraZeneca to better understand some of our learning needs and developing some solutions. So we're really looking forward to this opportunity for 2023. But Guillaume, maybe I'm curious of asking you the same question. What is on your wish list for 2023?
Well, thank you very much, Gabri. I think for me it's gonna be the connections, and I'm gonna be making the parallel with the picture I showed at the beginning. I think we are in a very nice place at the moment because we've got more and more connections between SAS and R. That's one thing, and there's more and more connections between the various languages. It doesn't matter if it's SAS or R. So that's one thing. Now, the other thing I'm very much looking forward to in 2023 is all the connections that are going to be made through the various departments at AstraZeneca. And we often talk about how do we evaluate a community and how hard it is to actually evaluate a community. I think all these connections, at the end of the day, do help the business, do help the organization. Because if you know that your friend that you met at Let's Meet Each Other, or that you met at any other kind of event, is also working on developing, let's say, a Shiny app, but you've never done this, then you might be able to reach out to that person instead of learning it the hard way. So that's what I'm very much looking forward to in 2023. So it's these bridges, these connections between people and between departments. So thank you very much, Rachel, for having us today.
Indeed, and I see lots of questions, Rachel.
Oh, I was muted. Thank you so much for joining us, Gabriella and Guillaume. It's really amazing to hear about all the different ongoing initiatives at AstraZeneca and about this growing community too. I see a lot of love for AstraZeneca in the chat and a few people from your team on as well. There are so many great questions here. So I'd love to see if we can get to as many as possible. I think we might have like over 30 questions here though. So we'll do our best. But let me I'll pull over a question from the YouTube chat right now. I was trying to star some of them as we were going. But one question from Jeremy was, AZ team, is there a company-wide community for data science or is it only in research?
So I can take this one. I can talk about the R community. So one thing that I did not mention is that today I talked about the R community, but we actually have other communities. So there is, for example, an imaging community. There is, for example, a Python community. So the R community is not the only community at AstraZeneca. Now, answering Jeremy's question, the community is an AstraZeneca-wide community. So that's why it was, and it is important for us to have these diverse sets of initiatives so that we try to meet the needs of everyone. And when you think about it, it's actually not that easy Because if you sit in R&D, if you sit in research and development, then when you think of a topic, intuitively, you're going to be thinking of a topic which is research and development oriented. So I think you have to be proactive and you have to make conscious decisions so that you include everyone.
I see on Slido there's a question that got a lot of upvotes, so I think people are really feeling seen in this question. How do people at AstraZeneca find balance between training versus doing their actual job? And how has AstraZeneca leadership supported and enabled this balance?
I think it's an interesting question. Finding balance at the end of the year is what everybody's looking for. But I think I have to say, this is always a tricky question. But I definitely have to say that AstraZeneca leadership has been very supportive, particularly when it comes to specific programs that we have developed. We had buy-in from them from the beginning in helping us steer the development of some of these programs as well. We do try to raise awareness of line managers of the importance of ring fencing time for learning, and especially encourage, now that we have all of these resources and opportunity, people to think about how training can help them achieve goals in their individual development plans. So we can improve that because we haven't necessarily find the perfect balance, but I have to say that there is support from leadership is there, and I think is quite crucial to make sure that these training programs land and people have the chance of taking advantage of them.
Thank you. And I just wanted to remind everybody real quickly that if you're looking for where everybody's asking these questions, we have a Slido link. And I just put the link on the screen and we can share it again in the chat. But you can also upvote some of the other questions so that they come up to the top too. Another popular question I see was from Dan over on Slido. Was there any issue with regulators at FDA, EMA when you switched to R from SAS?
And I'm happy to give you the go to this one, and Gabri, feel free to complete if you want. So I think, so we've not made a complete switch to R. There are other companies in the industry that decided to make this leap. We've not made it yet for a variety of reasons. We've not made it yet, and I think whether we like it or not, and I'm not saying AstraZeneca, as an industry, SAS is going to remain a key player in the years to come. And again, for a variety of reasons, because if we take, it can be AstraZeneca, it can be any other pharma company, if you've got SAS macros, if you've got SAS programs that are developed, it's going to be taking quite a substantial amount of time before you can actually transition to another kind of programming language. It can be R, it can be Julia, it doesn't matter. So we've not completely made that shift. And I think if we do decide to make that shift, it's going to take a bit of time. However, in our workforce, what we see is that there is more and more people using a wide variety of languages. Do you want to compliment Gabri?
No, I think I very much agree with what you say, Guillaume. I think there is I think recognition anyway that regulators are now fully aware of R and the power of R, so things will change in the future. And for the moment, as Guillaume said, we are doing some of the validate some of the work in R and getting people prepared for that switch, basically. And when it happens, you might be the first one to know.
Thank you. Another question over on Slido is, a challenge I find is having enterprise tools for R available for people to use after learning or training. How have you dealt with this at AstraZeneca?
So I think we have several platforms that are available to our data scientists and researchers. I mean, R is obviously one of the tools that can be easily installed from our software store, so anybody can install it. It's installed. We have an RStudio server. We have computing resources where R is available. So depending on your preferred way of work, I would say that you and Guillaume, please disagree with me if I am wrong, but depending on the way that you prefer to work, there should be a solution available for you, and you should definitely be able to have access to R through these various platforms that are available. And in fact, what we try to do in some courses is already run the training on such platforms, so that then the transition is even seamless.
I also like to add, if anybody was curious if their team had access to those and just didn't know, because I know that's hard across huge organizations, feel free to reach out to me if you ever want me to connect you with your account team here at Posit too. At some point, I'll put my LinkedIn in the chat too. But a lot of claps in the chat for you and people saying, very inspiring talk. Thank you so much. I see Joshua has asked, thank you both, Guillaume and Gabriella, for this excellent talk. I'm curious as to what role machine learning with R has in R&D at AstraZeneca.
That is a good question. Guillaume, do you want to take it, or do you want me to reflect on the training side of things?
You can. I can let you reflect on the training side of things, and I can complement you.
So actually, it is true that by default, one would think machine learning equals Python. And it's possibly very true that lots of our data scientists that are working in machine learning might have chosen Python. I can say that the first course that we offer in machine learning was machine learning in R through some of my former collaborators at the University of Cambridge. But Guillaume, maybe you have a different take.
No, I agree with you, and I'm going to be alluding. I can't remember who said that or in pharma, but I think in 2022, I think what is important is that we've got a set of tools. We've got historically in the industry, in the pharmaceutical industry, has been SAS. So we've got SAS, we've got R, we've got Python. Some of us use Julia. I think depending on what you do and depending on the requirements from the regulatory authorities, then you've got this set of tools, and you can tap on one tool or the other. And I don't think, and I think that's actually quite important. I don't think we should limit ourselves to one programming language, because one programming language is going to be having some strength than that the other doesn't have. And again, I think it goes back to personal preference. Some of us like better doing machine learning with R, and some of us like better doing machine learning with Python. It depends on what you're the most comfortable with. As long as you get the job done,
Thank you. I see a few questions that touch upon a similar idea, but one was, would the AstraZeneca's Data Science Academy be available to the public to gain the expertise? And maybe I'll also ask, are there any other community resources you recommend too?
In the current plans that we currently have, the resource itself it's only an in-house resource. What I can say though is I am actually working on some training activity more in the format of summer schools or winter schools, where we can actually bring together academics and colleagues from AstraZeneca. I think that is what I personally, as a training organizer, I miss very much. in organizing events that are virtual, the lack of that networking component. So I'm currently working on a summer school for next year to take place in Cambridge that will be open to academic and member of the private sector. So opportunities like that, I'm really looking forward to open more up in the future. And sort of similar, the same spirit, some of our community activities, we also invite external speakers, and we really try to increase the flow between our, from knowledge and networking opportunity between our academia and industry. Let's not forget, that there are many other programs that we did not talk about today. We have PhD programs, we have internship programs. So there are other opportunities where we can create, collaborations. So I would say probably stay tuned for the first AZ Summer School.
Love it. That's awesome. Okay, let me see. Going through some of the Slido questions, somebody else asked, how do you determine which people go through Posit Academy versus in-house training? Our team is exploring Academy now.
So I think actually it's an interesting question. So we were actually some of the beta testers of Posit Academy. So we were one of the first to take advantage of the program. And I think, I don't know how much the people online know about Posit Academy, but I think one of the strengths of this program is that the training, it's developed and built around a particular project or a particular objective. So the individuals that kind of applied to attend that course needed to also propose a project that they would work on and that around which the training was crafted. So I think we went on selecting individuals that had also quite a timely need to learn R. They had a need to implement the skill. We try to also guarantee sort of an equal representation of participants from our different research areas. So that was kind of the approach that we used. So we actually do not normally do selection for participate on the courses, where in these cases we did, so that we wanted to get, sort of the most motivated individual with the most pressing need to acquire the skill, and with the project line up to apply this to. So I would say selection was quite key in this case, and we would continue to run this collaboration in this spirit, selecting participants that would mostly benefit.
Thank you. Is it okay if I keep firing away a few more questions at you? Okay. So going by some of the most upvoted questions here on Slido, one was, how do you do risk analysis for any tasks you are doing first time in R and submission studies?
Oh, this one is yours, Guillaume.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Gabby, for
moral support all the way.
So to the best of my knowledge, and so as I was saying, we've not made the full transition to R at the moment. And to the best of my knowledge, I'm not sure we've actually done any kind of submission using R. So I don't think I'm actually able to answer this question.
I'm throwing all the hard questions at you right now. So the next most upvoted here was, if SAS wouldn't have raised the prices by such a high percentage, do you think open source would be less prevalent in pharma?
So I can give it a go, and Gabby, you can complement as well if you want. I think so. There's a few things in this question. So there's definitely the price of the license that is definitely pricey, and for some organizations it is an issue, and it has a huge impact on our budget as well. So that's one thing. But I think there's another aspect to it, which is the open source aspect. And as of today, when you want to consult, when you're reading a paper, and when you want to actually give a try to the statistical methodology or the new machine learning methodology, it's going to be in the form of an R package, some kind of development, some kind of open source development. And I think that's also a big difference between SAS and R, in the sense that there's all the regulatory work, and still as of today at AstraZeneca, it is SAS. But then there's all the question about exploratory and all the question about study design, if we take the example of designing randomized controlled trials. And then that's where I think the strength of open source plays a big role. So I think even if SAS would not have raised the prices that much, I still think open source would have played a key role in the pharmaceutical industry.
And I think this is also, I think it's also linked to one of the questions that popped up, I think, on the YouTube channel. Konstantinos was asking, what are the dangers of using R or open source languages compared to licensed languages? And I wouldn't call it a danger, but I'll say that when I first heard about R, I, in my PhD, used closed tools. I didn't use R for any kind of analytical work that I did during my PhD. It gives you an idea of my age. Let's forget about that. But I think the advantage of open source is that you have a community. You have the experts in a field developing a solution that is available to you few months after it has been developed. It's out there, you can use it, you can modify it. And it is not the same in environments like SAS, like MATLAB. We don't want to pick on SAS particularly. I think you have that cutting edge, you have that community, you have that support. You post a question on the R community and, the person that has developed the package answer you. Doesn't get better than that in terms of access to expertise and knowledge. So I'm not going to say that we all have to ditch non-open source tools, but I think it's a great complement to be able to have that support and be able to move at quite a fast pace with open source.
Thank you both. Okay, is it okay? I know we scheduled maybe 15 minutes extra to run over. Do you have to run to a meeting?
No, that's okay for me.
Yeah.
Okay, there's so many great questions. Okay, so one of the first questions actually that came over on YouTube, and you might need to help me with some of the acronyms here. Does AZ use R or Python in a GMP environment, or is it just in research business functions?
So Gabri, do you have a good overview of all the platforms that we use?
I probably say not an overview of all the platforms that we use.
So I have been working with so I can give it a try if you want. So I've been in contact with someone in late phase clinical trials, so late phase programming in randomized controlled trials, and this is definitely a hot topic, because if we want to push the use of R further at AstraZeneca, there is definitely all the piece related to the training. How do we upskill our collaborators? But there is also all the piece regarding GXP compliant environments. So this is something we are working on, and hopefully in the next few months we should have an answer to this.
Thank you. Going back and touching on the training aspect, somebody had asked, what KPIs does your team use to evaluate how much each course or how successful each course was?
And Rachel, you said we only have 15 minutes.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I briefly touched it when we were looking at those numbers for our art training, but this is actually something that I am quite passionate about. Even before joining AZ, I was already looking at how to measure quality and impact of short courses. in one of the previous projects that I was involved in, which was actually a pan-European infrastructure, Elixir. And, I think the way we approach it is right after the course, we would measure the quality. Did you like the course? Did you think it was balanced? Are you planning to use the tools in your future work? What did you like the most? What did you like the least? Just to get a sense of how the course is received. And then at intervals of 6 months after the course, 6 months after the course, we will circulate another survey where we are instead going to ask, are you using the tools? In what way has the training helped you? And you saw some of the questions that we ask, like, has improved the way you code, has improved the way you collaborate. But we also ask questions around, have you actually passed your knowledge to others? Have you trained others on how to use the tools? So we do collect some metrics, a combination of quantitative and qualitative, although these type of KPIs are often more qualitative than quantitative. We try to do some quantitation, but it's not perfect. But also we do interviews, round of interviews with our learners, just ask them, some people, that by survey is definitely something that we are experiencing. So it's nice to do some case studies. We have, evidence of individuals that have changed roles and were not in a data science role, and then they have transitioned into one. We have several success stories on how the training is helping. So we have few sets of KPIs, but in some cases it's also just interviews and talking to the learners and see how they've been affected.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll take maybe 5 more questions if we can get through them, but I'll send you all the other questions too and can try and group them together as well. But on Slido, I'm seeing right now the most upvoted is, how did you pick use cases that would motivate people to want to learn? Did you start with specific technologies to highlight the power of open source data science, like Shiny?
I think when it comes to use cases, I think this is a bit of a, I would say that the success of the training program is also try to marry, what is the need with what is the availability of the people that are going to contribute to the training program. Let me explain. When we work on use cases, we try to showcase the work that others within the organization are doing. So we want to kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. One is to already display how we are using data science, how we are utilizing one particular technology, and how is that enabling us to achieve particular goals in a way that you get also to inspire others. And that is where you go back to that peer-to-peer learning as well. How others are using the skill within the organization might be relevant for what I'm trying to do. But at the same time, it's also an opportunity for our subject matter expert, many of which contribute to our training, to showcase also what they do. So give them that visibility. Make people aware of who are the experts within the organization. So if I have a problem and I want to talk about natural language process, who do I go and talk to? So I think, the selection of the use cases is what is that we think is up and coming and is going to be a hot topic of interest, but also where are our experts and how can we give them some visibility through showcasing some of their use case, of the work that they do through these use cases.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Trying to make sure I got to all the ones upvoted up there. The other one on the training was, how much is it reproducible environments and workflows taught for all users going through the training?
Well, I can definitely say that reproducible science, is very high on our list. We can do better. We are developing more courses that are around software best practices and how you work reproducibly as I said before, we try to get more of our courses run, of our infrastructure. So when the training is over, the infrastructure is already readily available to the user to continue their work. We have recently done a seminar, actually just last week, wasn't it, Guillaume, around workflows in collaboration with POSIT. So again, I think we definitely need to expose more of these and get more people to utilize our environments and adopt best practices. So it is definitely something on the rise. How do you containers and reproducibility and portability is definitely something that is high on my list for next year, budget permitting.
It's like the end of the year, Gabriella.
I can have my Santa wish list, no?
Exactly.
Absolutely. On the community front, I know Guillaume at RN Pharma, we were talking a bit about making things sustainable. And I see somebody had asked, can you talk about why you decided to drop azTidyTuesdays?
That's a very good question. It was not an easy decision because it was the first initiative we started, and that's what built quite some momentum around the community. So that was definitely not an easy decision. But the reason why we decided to drop azTidyTuesdays was basically we could see a drop in participation. So that was one thing. And it was also the fact that, all these initiatives, even if you think that at first they don't take time, they still do take some time because, for every single azTidyTuesday edition, we had to look for a data set. So it was a publicly available data set, but we still had to look for one, and we had to frame it around a nice story. Then you have to select a featured entry. Then you go through the code. Then you select. We were selecting 3 to 5 nice things in the code that we were actually putting up so that everyone could benefit. So it was a matter of time, basically, and it was to free a bit of space, a bit of space, a bit of time for new initiatives.
Thank you. Okay, 2 more questions, I promise. One great question over on Slido is, are there teams in AZ that include both R-only people and SAS-only people? If yes, how did you manage them working together?
I think I can give a go to this one. I think this is kind of fading away, I would say, because I was saying, everyone is becoming multilingual these days. And I think it is true, and it is true for the new joiners in the industry, because even if they learned R, Python, or Julia at university, when they join AstraZeneca as early career professionals, they have some SAS training, so they become multilingual in SAS. Now, if we take the example of people who have been with us for a longer period of time and who are more versatile at SAS, I think they're also seeing the R journey, not only at AstraZeneca, but in the pharmaceutical industry. And if people want to remain competitive, they need to learn to use R. So this kind of dichotomy between R-only people or SAS-only people, I don't think it exists anymore. And I don't think in the years to come it's going to exist, because everyone is multilingual and everyone is going to be able to help each other out.
Okay, so in thinking about all the different community initiatives, I see Eric had a great question. How do you motivate community members to share their insights and learnings in the meetups or other sessions?
That's a great one. And it very much relates to what we talked about in the past, Rachel, when we're like, I think what is important in communities is how do you make sure that your community goes from a receiving mode to a contributing mode. And I was just looking like earlier today at our Facebook equivalent group at AstraZeneca, and I was actually quite happy when I was scrolling through the feed of the group, because I was like, I could see questions popping up and posts popping up. So not many posts, today, but like, from the past few days. And these posts were not driven by steering committee members. And I think that's the hardest bit, maybe. How do you make sure that you create we talked about this as well in the past, how do you make sure you create a safe space so that everyone is fine being vulnerable in such an environment, and being like, okay, I'm going to be asking a question. Maybe it's a simple question, but it doesn't matter. And I think that's kind of how we motivate others. We try to create this safe space so that everyone can speak up. That's one thing. And the other thing is also, we've got different kinds of initiatives. Some of them require quite a level of awe, but some of the other of them, let's say the lunch and learns, we make sure that we don't overcomplicate things, so that it's also open for a beginner to present in a few editions. And I very much like what you say, Rachel, when you talk about, the journey of a participant. Maybe that person is going to be joining the meetup first, not speaking. Then following time, that person is going to be asking a question. And then the goal is to have that person present something at some point. So that's what we try to do.
And I would say that there is a lot of enthusiasm, though, within the organization for sharing. So when I was, for some reason, part of one of the sponsor of our community conference, and I think there was lots of uptake. People really volunteer to participate, present, co-organize. I think one thing that we have to appreciate, and I didn't when I joined the organization, this is a very vast organization. So you can be an R user, relatively isolated in your group, trying to do something, not knowing what others are doing. So I think establishing these networks and meetings or meetups, people really value the fact that they can share experience and connect. So I think the enthusiasm is definitely there. I don't think we need to do too much motivation.
That's a great point, though, Gabri. Sometimes people might be working in a team where they don't know about the community that exists already. And if in the future somebody is watching this meetup recording on YouTube and they're from AstraZeneca and they just started, how do they go about finding out about the community events?
Yeah, as Guillaume said, we have social media. Everybody's added to that social media. I'm personally working on getting more data science learning onto onboarding. So, it's all about raising awareness of what's out there and what's available. So I think there are channels for newcomers to do so, but I'm sure we can improve in that respect as well. But there are various channels through which they can become aware.
Great. Thank you both so much, Gabriella and Guillaume. It's really been great getting to join some of the R and Pharma events and to get to meet you both and work with you both. It's so impressive to see all the training and community building that you both do. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, welcome, with a pleasure. Thank you.
For others listening in, I also wanted to just give you a heads up, and I just put it into the chat too, but it's a big pharma week for us here, because we also have Christina Fillmore, a data science leader at GSK, joining us as the featured leader at the Data Science Hangout this Thursday as well. So I also just put that into the chat. But want to thank you all for all your great questions and for being here and joining us today as well. Have a great rest of the day, everybody. Thank you so much.